Welcome to the Beat Pain Podcast, where we learn what actually works for pain relief, staying healthy, and navigating the medical world. I'm your host, Brandon Cope. My guest today retells his story of becoming a world-class triathlete, learning to recover from his injuries and how his attitude of tinkering keeps him strong. Please enjoy my conversation with Matt Organista. Matt, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's really great to be able to talk to you. I'm thinking about back when we first met. I think I've known you since high school, and even way back then, you were an athlete, and you were an intense and a serious athlete. You wanted to do things competitively. You wanted to do things well in your sports. And I remember back then you doing triathlons. And I'm just thinking, all the way, for so long now, you've been doing triathlons and you've been such a serious triathlete. What made you want to do triathlons? What got you really into that? And how did you get started into the whole world of being an athlete?
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me. This is really exciting. This is my first ever podcast. So that is really awesome. I'm super excited to talk about something I'm super passionate about and I've done for a really long time, which is triathlon and sports. Let's see here. Yeah. So we met each other at church, and that's kind of like where my triathlon kind of started. It's kind of weird, but that is like the beginnings of like my triathlon journey. I wasn't super good at sports growing up, but I loved sports, especially I loved running. And it was funny because the other night I was cleaning up some stuff at my house, trying to get my room organized because we're moving into a little tiny house that we built. But I found this certificate, Runner of the Year.
Nice.
And it was from fifth grade. And I was I was tripping out on it because I was like, did I even run back then? And I totally remember like I was all about running. I would do laps and laps and laps at school. And I just did it because it was fun. I wasn't fast, but I just would go like all day. And anyways, and so like there's this funny story too, like growing up running, I go to the YMCA summer camp, and I remember one time I just started to do laps on this track around a hockey rink there, and I did like 67 laps on the track, and it was like 2.5, like 3 hours of running. It was a small track, so it wasn't a full-size track, but I remember I just ran for like 2.5 hours straight as like
Wow.
a fifth, sixth grader. It was so funny.
Wow.
And one of the counselors there, like, I remember that time you did that. And I didn't even remember until he told me. And I was like, geez, like, I guess I was kind of like crazy, like fitness kid back then, but like, I was never really good. I just like enjoyed doing it because there's just something about running that just like pierces to like the depths of like my like very like raw being of adventure, and like it's such a grit sport, so I really enjoyed doing that. But yeah, so my triathlon journey started like it really kicked off when I was 15. I was sitting on the steps at Reality, and every year my cousin and I would do the Orchard to Ocean run together, and I never really knew the time of year like it was. Like I never planned for it. I just would like hear about it and be like, oh, like that's right, it's that time of year again, we're going to do the race, and it's like next weekend. And so we go run a little bit and like get all excited. And it's funny because everybody looks at me as like a crazy athlete in the family, but really my cousin is the better athlete. And
Really?
I have a lot, I have a lot to thank him for, because he was like my brother growing up, and anything we did, whether it be like an instrument, like a hobby, a sport, he always had to take it to the next level and like one up me. And he was younger too. So you imagine like the older one, like being like one up by the younger one. And that's how it was with running, is he was just like, he would always sit on me to the finish line at the Orchard to Ocean run. And I was just digging deep, and like he would outkick me, and he had the deeper like drive, it's like that finish line. Who's like, you're both hurting at that point, and it's like, who wants it more? And he always wanted it more, and he always got me, always. And it just drove me nuts. I know if he continued running or getting into the same sport that I did, we would both be like way higher level.
Really?
yeah, he picked up surfing in like 6th grade and just like diehard surfer,
Hmm.
and went the surfing route. And like that's one of my favorite things to do is watch him surf these days. And it's fun because like I just go to the beach and sit there and watch him surf, and he's so good, and it's just awesome. And I just like I don't know, I just really enjoy watching him surf. And it's fun now because I've gone through so many injuries and stuff that like he gets injured and I get to like try to help him fix him with his injuries. But yeah. So anyways, but yeah, I was sitting on the steps at Reality Church, and this guy runs by wearing this weird like suit with a number. And I was like, it's in the same area where they do the Orchard Ocean Run. It's the same street that they run
Okay.
down. And he runs by, and I was like, oh no, I missed that race, that Orchard Ocean Run. And I was like super bummed. And then like these guys kept running by, and then like it was weird. They were wearing like biking suits, and I was like, this is like not the right gear. And I was like, what is this? I was like, what do you? And the next person ran by, and I like walked over, and I was like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, it's a triathlon. The guy's like super out of breath, like running. And I was like, triathlon? And I was like, I've never done a triathlon before. I was like, I can swim and I can run. And I was playing water polo and had done swim team. And I was like, well, I've never done any biking. And I was like, well, I ride my bike to school every single day. I was like, I can do triathlon. At the beginning of the summer, like that was like my first time ever prepping for like a race like this, was the carp triathlon. And that following summer, I did junior lifeguards and got super fit with swimming and running. And then my friend's dad let me borrow his bike. It's like an old like 80s bottom tube shifter, like steel frame with these fat, like clunky tires that weren't even
Oh
like
man.
true. They're all wobbly. And he let me borrow it. And I was like, this is the first road bike I've ever been on. I was just like stoked. Like I felt like such a pro. I know you guys back then thought I was like super legit, but like looking back at pictures, I was like, I can't believe I wore that stuff. There's this picture of me coming across the finish line wearing like basketball shorts past the knees,
Oh
and like
no.
this tight like spandex long sleeve Under Armour shirt, and my stomach's like sagging out, and like I had these like high socks and these like basketball shoes, and like
Oh.
I had this fro when I was a kid, and so like it's just huge fro and just like this fat like chubby cheek smile. I was super
Oh
chubby
no.
sophomore year in high school, and I look at that picture and I'm just like, gosh, like thank God I don't like wear that stuff anymore. Oh,
Oh.
it's so funny. But yeah, I mean, that was like my first race, and I got 26th. I had a really good swim. I think I got second in the swim, and then just got slowly picked off throughout the rest of the race. And I finished 26th overall, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool. Like, and then the next year I did it again. I got ninth, and then I did the Santa Barbara Triathlon, and that one was like my favorite. Carp and Santa Barbara were my two favorite races like ever, like out of all the triathlons I've done. Like those are just beautiful courses, super fun. It's like hometown vibes, and it's great. Like triathlon community in this area is super awesome. And so those two, like, and then every year I've just done those two races. There's been a couple years where I was injured or something was going on, to where I didn't do it. But yeah, I mean, that's how I got into it, sitting on the steps at church and just kind of like looking for the next adventure type of thing. And yeah, just kind of stepped way out of my element and kind of got into it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I love how you are describing your mindset as a younger, like a child, that you would just be sitting there watching people go by. And it's like, yeah, I could do that. There wasn't this like limiting belief factor. There wasn't this like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't, that might not be for me. Maybe something bad could happen. You're just like, yeah, oh no, I could do that. Yeah. Yeah. Let me try that. Like just the adventure is there, you were ready to dive in and go explore that. That's awesome.
Yeah. It is. It's like, I don't know. It's something unique about like doing sports that I just like love. I love doing, and I love like trying new activities regardless of what it is. And it's weird because I never really had um, like shame when it came to like trying sports. There's certain things like where I was like scared to shoot the ball in high school with water polo sometimes, because I didn't want to miss. But like for the most part, I'm actually like playing and like doing it. It's pretty remarkable when I was 15 to think like I didn't have anybody pushing me into the race. Like nobody was telling me to train. Nobody was like, I didn't have
Yeah.
parents like saying, hey, you should do it. You should do this race. We're going to get you a coach. We're going to sign you up for swim team. It's just like this drive that I had when I was a kid. And it was just the strangest thing because, having coached high school, it's like, not all kids are like that. They need a little push. And so it was just kind of like a unique thing that I had when I was a kid. It's like, not being good at sports because I was like really chunky. And I still did them because I thought it was just fun. And so, anyways.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you were talking about with your cousin here for a second. You were talking about how, you would get injuries, he would get injuries, and you would like to kind of look at his injuries and, figure out how you can help him with that. I mean, what got you to a place, maybe just through accumulating injuries, but like what got you to a place where you had that education about your own body that you felt like you understood how injuries worked?
Yeah, there was this is like fast forwarding, like past high school into college. Is in high school, I got invited to train with the UCSB triathlon team by a coach out there. He had really high hopes for me to be a really good triathlete one day. And I really I started training and riding a lot in high school, and I'd come out to the practices with the CSB team. And this is my first real go with training. And I didn't have any structure. I didn't have any form or technique other than what I felt was a good idea, which is not a good idea at all when you're asking a high schooler who's uneducated to, take something seriously without any education.
Yeah.
And I was super stubborn because I felt like my way of doing things was the right way of doing things. And my coach would give me these workouts, and I would be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to run easy for 5 miles today. I'm going to go run really hard for half an hour, as hard as I can until I can't run anymore. And that's going to be my workout. And so I'd do stuff like that, day in and day out. And I got really bad shin splints when I was in high school, so bad to where I was I couldn't even walk around the house because my legs were just throbbing, and I just felt so bad. And I can't hide that kind of stuff from my coach. It's he'd ask me well, how you doing? I was like, oh, I don't feel good. My legs hurt. He's like, well, yesterday was an easy day. It's yeah, I didn't go easy. And so finally he just told me one day, he's like, look, if you're not going to take my coaching seriously, I'm not going to coach you. And I was like, shoot, because he was doing it for free. And I was like, all right. And so I got in this cycle of okay, I'd have a good run, but then I felt I had to go harder and more and faster and more. And it just, and then I just get in this cycle of, especially when it came close to races. And that was very deadly because that's the last thing you should be doing leading up to a race. So I developed all these injuries, and then I just had this moment of just where I was just legitimately broken. Cause at this point, this was in college. It was my sophomore year in college. And I had this moment of I'm never going to be able to run again. I couldn't even walk downstairs because I had this excruciating pain in my knee. And
Wow.
At City College, walking around campus, trying to get from class to class and going up and down stairs. And it's I literally couldn't walk downstairs, and I was holding the rail, walking sideways, trying not to bend my knee because it hurt so bad. And I just was I remember thinking this type of pain is not good. And this is the type of pain that puts you in a wheelchair. And I had this moment of this, I'm never going to be able to run again. I was super bummed. And for a month, just moping around, trying to figure out. And it was weird because I would run for half an hour, towards the end when after giving myself some rest, forced into rest, I'd run for half an hour, and literally at 30 minutes into my run, my knee would lock up.
Oh, wow.
And I just would I couldn't walk. I couldn't run. And so I'd walk home. And if you think about going on an out and back 30-minute run to translating back to walking, it takes forever. And there's nothing I can do because I didn't have my cell phone with me. I never ran with my cell phone. And it's who am I going to call when I'm 5 miles away at Rincon on the beach? It's
right.
By myself, and just so much time to think about what I'm doing. And so that's what kind of put me into trying to figure out what's wrong with myself and how my body works. And part of that with a little backdrop of my history growing up is like, I love to tinker, and I still do today. I love to build things. I love to take things apart and just to see how they work. And there's just this like satisfaction of like knowing how something works and building that I love. Like growing up, Legos was my favorite thing ever. And I would like build these crazy, I wouldn't even follow instructions. I just build these like crazy remote control solar boats and then bring them to school, like
That
middle
is
school,
awesome.
show and tell out of Legos. And it like totally worked. But
Yes.
yeah. And so like that, like being in my personality when it's like, I'm broken, it's like, I want to know what's going on with myself. And so I took this class just like trying to figure out what I want to do in college. I was going to want to do engineering because I love building. And then I was like, okay, too much math. I want to be an architect. And I was like, okay, too much math. And then I was like, okay, well, I love doing videos. And I was like, okay, I want to go to school for video. And so I thought about going to Brooks Institute for video. And then I was like, well, I like ceramics. So I wanted to be an art major. And I was like, well, I can't really do anything with an art degree. And I was like, I'm not going to go to school and take debt out for something that I'm probably not going to use to pay off that debt. So then I was like, I took this class and I was just like, the first thing we went over was, it was intro to athletic injuries. And the first thing that we talked about was this soft tissue that was started in the hip and connected down to the knee. And it was the IT band. And literally the first week of class, the teacher was talking about this. And I was just sitting there and I'm like, okay, like you got my attention. And she started talking about how this is one of the top 5 running injuries. And it's this sharp shooting pain in your knee. It feels like someone's taking a knife and stabbing in the knee. And I was like in class and being like, oh my gosh, like that's what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
And I just remember being hooked at that point and being like, okay, how do I fix it? And I went up to the teacher after class and talked to her, and she ended up being the athletic trainer for the school. And we had some conversations about it, and I did a bunch of research and was like watching videos and like trying to figure out like, and so I just started foam rolling like crazy foam rolling. And in like 2 weeks it went away, and I was just like so overjoyed and like so happy. And I made this little I made a very special tool specifically for your IT band to like massage it out. I've never seen anything like it to this day. I remember getting on this thing and like, just digging out my IT band so like hard. And like the more people I talk to about it, they're like, yeah, like I did this. And so I would just aggressively for like an hour and a half, like be just digging it out a couple times a week. And yeah. And then like I got it in the other leg when I started doing cross country. And as soon as I felt that like weird, like tight pain, I just started rehabbing it right away. And again, I still didn't really know like structure of training. I just knew how to fix myself. I never really knew how to prevent injuries. I just knew how to fix them, at least like those ones. And then like shin splints. And when I started running cross country, the shin splints came back. Not because I had a poor coaching or I wasn't following coaching. It's just because I wore these shoes, the Vibrams. I read this really interesting article about barefoot running, and I thought it was really cool. So I started like training like Kenyan kids and running barefooted, and I'd do these races like barefooted on pavement, with Vibrams, and that just tore up my calves. And
absolutely, yeah,
because I went from running like 3 days a week to running every day a week, like almost like twice as long. So yeah, I mean, you can imagine running those all the time. And it wasn't a smart idea, but it was, I started to have like structure and started to understand how things work. And I talked to my coach because he was Scott Vickerson. He was very educated on this stuff. And I think he was a kinesiology major or exercise science major, or I know he taught at Cal Lutheran, and he had a ton of knowledge, especially with nutrition too. So I always like picked his mind, and he just would like laugh at me sometimes because my some of the stuff I would do was just like so unorthodox, and I still back and I'm like, gosh, like why did I wear those things? Like why did he let me wear those at races? Like I'm just like
letting you be dumb.
But I like appreciate it because I like kind of learned, but had his guidance there, and it was good. It was a good time. I spent a lot of time learning and just through trial and error and just picking his mind too, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's basically how my curiosity for fixing injuries. Like later, having just immersed myself in this, getting hit by a car, which I'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
But just encountering all these different injuries all the time as my body started maturing and my bones and muscles started to mature a little bit more. And my body changed. I really felt it change. I wasn't like the bouncing ball kid around all the time where I could like, go do all this stuff and like bounce off the pavement with skateboarding. And like things actually started to hurt when I got older. And I started running into weird pains, and like I already knew like what the muscles do, what they connect, like what their responsibility was as far as movement goes, and how things were connected, like referral pain, and just taking all these classes in school and being surrounded by other athletes. I mean, when all the kines majors at Westmont. So after I went to City College, I transferred to Westmont. All the kinesiology majors at Westmont, we were either like currently injured or like past injured athletes, and it was
Wow.
just super fun because everybody bring up their stories, and it was such a great time because we're all like resonate with each other of like, oh, I'm like hurt, injured, like how do I fix this? And like it was really fun. It was a fun time, and just being surrounded by that, I just developed this like, hey, he had this elbow pain, he's a tennis player, like this is kind of like a similar motion from paddling, and I know like what the elbow pain is, and I get to do that with my cousin. And like he would get these weird issues, and I would like work on his shoulders every once in a while, and my grandma, same thing, and my grandpa. And pretty soon I became like, I get phone calls from friends that I haven't talked to in like months and years. And I got this like issue going on, like what should I do? And I turned into like this like mobile consultant, like on demand with my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. And like most of the time, like just a little bit of advice that I gave them worked.
Yeah.
And it was pretty like, it was pretty incredible. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's awesome. I got to
yeah.
point something out about what you said right now, because you were talking about how, you got into sports, you started getting into competitive running and triathlons, and then you busted up your shins, busted up your knee, got to the point where you're like, having these fears, these doubts. I don't even know if I could, can I keep doing this? Can I keep running? I can't, my body is really hurting right now. But instead of just giving up right there, you owned it. You took that responsibility and you learned what you needed to learn, and then you did the work and you got better, and now you're running again. And
Yeah.
then later, like when you were talking about when you went to Westmont and you were with all these kines majors, you surrounded yourself in an environment with people who were able to push you even further. And I
Yeah.
think that I kid you not, I think that is one of the most important aspects of people's injury recovery, is if they can own it and take responsibility and do the work themselves, for what they need to do. And if they can surround themselves in an environment with other people who are in that same place or who are able to push them to get to that recovery. I mean, when people have really serious recovery or injury issues and they just give up, there's no way they're, if they just give up and they say, you know what, somebody else has to fix this or figure this out, I'm not going to learn about it, I'm not going to try to do all the hard work, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to
Yeah.
get
And
anywhere if you don't want it.
yeah, totally. I mean, I even with like, so my grandpa's had like 3 knee replacements on the same knee because the
Oh,
doctors have
wow.
like done it like poorly the first 2 times. And like when you go through that multiple times and then you watch a video after, like, so he watched a video of like what they did to his knee, and I'm just like, that's like, and he was just like mortified, like how violent it is. And like his hip was all messed up because they were like pounding it in and stuff. It was really
Oh,
gnarly.
wow.
But like, yeah. And now his knee, he can't extend his knee fully extended because his hamstrings are so tight because he's always had his knee bent. And it's like, to me, it's mind boggling to see how immobile his knee is because he doesn't stretch it. And
Wow.
I know I spent a ton of time trying to like encourage him just to do like basic stretching and like like real simple like stretches every day, like 5 to 10 minutes would easily fix his knee issues because he's got really bad knee pain and it leads to other things and gets all stiff and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I remember like 2 days, like it just was so painful to just watch him in the pain and just like, I was like, Grandpa, we're going to like, I don't care what you say right now. We're going to like work on your knee. And so I spent like 45 minutes and like, it really hurt him to like extend his knee and me stretch it. And I had like this very special stretching technique for your hamstring to loosen up your hip flexors and hamstring. I did it. And I wanted to measure his mobility before and after. And he got like 5 inches of,
Wow.
of knee extension back. Like
Wow.
his knee was like 70. It was like, no, it was 17 inches. He can bend his knee. So I had him lay on the ground, measure the bottom of the knee to the ground. And it was like 17 inches, which is like,
Okay.
you think about it, that's crazy. In that 45 minutes, he got down 5 more inches. So
Wow.
so he can bend his knee to like a foot off the ground, which is still, if you think about that, that's still like, what? You kidding me? You can extend your leg no further than having your knee off a foot off the ground. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy. But like just doing like 45 minutes of that brought his knee 5 inches down. It's like, think if we could do that every single day. And so like, I think that was like mind opening for him. But again, he just didn't want to do it. And so,
Yeah.
and I think now this was a couple years ago. And so now like, as he's getting a little older and starting to see his friends slow down and how bad that is for you. And I think he knows like, I got to get on this knee thing because
Yeah.
it keeps him from doing a lot of things. And he knows the second that he starts slowing down with like activity and being sedentary, then it's like a really downhill slope.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean, it's been great to watch him go to the gym and ride a bike, even though that still doesn't do his stretches. Like he's doing some type of activity that's involving the need to get a little bit better. And it's so funny because like there's like a couple days where he would like be really intentional, and then you'd just be like, wow, my knee feels so good.
Uh-huh.
It hasn't hurt in like 4 days. And I'm like, I'm sitting there, I'm just like, I don't know what to tell you anymore. Like, yeah, that's how it works. That's how it
Connect the
works.
dots. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it's just like even it's so hard. You just have to be intentional about it sometimes, and you really have to want to get better.
Yeah.
And I know now like that drive isn't as much as it was. So like when I feel injury creeping on, I do a little bit more than what I'm doing, but it wasn't like crazy like I was about it. And I do find that it helps. But yeah, again, it's just that being intentional. It makes such a big difference.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, good on you. Good on you that you figured out stuff in your own body. You were a tinkerer and you got stuff done, solved problems, and now you're able to help other people with that. That's awesome.
yeah.
Okay. I want to hear about that car accident that you were telling me about. Something happened. You were in a car accident. Did you hurt your shoulder, your back?
Yeah,
What happened
it's
to
my
you?
shoulder. It was my shoulder. So I'd say like when I hurt my knee, it was right around the same time I hurt my knee. Uh, it was it was before I hurt my knee. Yeah, it was before I hurt my knee. I was in this car accident. First I got hit in 2008. Um, no, I got hit in 2007, in the fall of 2007, riding my bike to school. Uh, it was funny because like I got into cycling really big in college,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I wanted to get a better triathlon. I just found like this is the perfect commute. I can get 25 miles in a day, ish a week. Sorry,
Whoa.
125
Oh,
miles
okay.
a week,
Wow.
which was like the perfect training amount.
Yeah.
And I remember like riding my bike. It would take me like 45 minutes to get to City College, and I
Okay.
was like coming to class all sweaty and stuff. And then by the time after 3 years, like I was like cruising at 35 minutes. And like on fast days, I could easily break like 30 minutes going home with a nice little tailwind.
Nice.
And just like, yeah, and like cool to see my fitness over time. But all that consistency of riding on the road increased my chances of getting hit by cars. And at this time, I wasn't a defensive rider at all because I just like started riding my bike consistently. And this is back then when like cell phones weren't really that like crazy, where everybody didn't have a cell phone or a smartphone or like,
Sure.
all these apps and looking at all this stuff on your phone all the time. And it was early morning. It was in the fall, sunrise. This guy was turning left into the sun. He was looking straight into the sun, and like that's one of the most common times to get hit is the sunrise, sunset, because the sun's super low. Like drivers can't see what's people on the road. And yeah, like there's so many times when I like rid my bike through there in the morning, and like I just go by and like this is where I got hit by a car. Wow. And he just turned straight into me, like T-boned me, came across the road and like didn't even see me till like I was on his hood.
Wow.
And I like went under his bumper and like I was like pinned on the ground between his bumper and my bike and the ground. And I was just gosh, like 10 more feet and I'd be under the car.
That is so scary.
And yeah, that was my first time I got hit. And I was just like, geez. And like I got hit. I was totally fine too. And so it was weird because like I had like a little scuffed up knee, and a couple of days later I was fine. I didn't have any issues. My bike got ruined, my back tire, but it was aluminum frame. So it's just like solid. So it didn't break or crack or anything. So I was super stoked on that because I could like next week ride my bike back again. And then 2008, so the next year, I got hit pretty bad. This lady ran a stop sign in Coast Village, and I saw her come down. It was like it was perpendicular to Coast Village Road right there by the Bank of America.
Yep.
And I was coming down. Yeah, I was going north, and I saw her come down, and she was in a hurry, and she just screamed through that stop sign, like looked both ways as she was like going like 15 miles an hour. And like I was off in the distance, and I came up on her bumper, but I was in the bike lane, and then she just hit the brakes and just turned right super hard into the Bank of America parking lot and just nailed me. And I was going fast, like, and I rolled over her hood. I came unclipped, which I don't even know to this day how that happened, but I came unclipped. My bike, like my shoulder just dented the side of her car, like the passenger side, put a huge dent in it. And then I rolled over the hood because she stopped, and I had all this momentum, and I landed on my feet. It was crazy.
Wow.
And one of the guys on the sidewalk that was like, saw it, he like came up to me after and was like, that was incredible. Like, I don't know how you landed on your feet. And I don't even like remember anything other than like, it was such a blur. And I just like remember like landing on the ground and like being like, what the heck happened? And like she like opens the door and is like freaking out. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just like, God, my bike is like smashed. And like, that's the first thing I thought was my bike.
Wow.
And like, I didn't feel any pain. It was weird. You know, people talk about like, oh, I didn't feel pain, adrenaline. It's so true. Like that stuff never made sense to me because I never like got super worked up, but like I was sitting there and like so worked out for like 10, 15 minutes. I didn't have any pain. And then I just was sitting on this sidewalk, and the fire department's there, and they're like doing tests and like testing my like organs and stuff and poking me around. And the one guy asked me to lift up my right arm. I lift up my right arm, and then he's like, lift up your left arm. And I went to lift up my left arm, and I couldn't.
Oh, wow.
It hurt so bad. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I can't. And so he started like poking around, and I was like, that hurts. And then like all of a sudden, like the pain just set in like so bad. And I went to the hospital, and I took x-rays, and I separated my shoulder, the AC joint.
Wow.
And so then I went to a shoulder doctor in town. And this was like a month later. And I couldn't even drive. Like I couldn't use my left arm for like a month because it hurt. Yeah, I went to the doctor, and he looked at the x-rays. It was like 5 minutes. And he was like, well, you can do surgery, but it's not going to do much. And you can live a normal life with your shoulder, but you're not going to be able to do what like you used to be able to do, and you're going to be very limited, and later down the road you might have some issues. And I was like, great, like there goes my hopes for like Olympic triathlons and stuff. And so I was like super bummed because like at this point I was so invested in the sport, and I was just like broken because like there goes like any chance of like going to qualify for the Olympics or getting on the circuit or being a pro triathlete is gone because I just knew I couldn't swim. And for like 2.5, 3 years, my shoulder just, I had this popping every time I would lift my elbow and turn it in, internally rotate my arm, it just popped. my
Wow.
shoulder, just like pop, it was like, and I was just like, gosh, it does not sound good in there, like at all. But like everything was fine. And like, I just knew it would never be the same. And so I couldn't swim. I could only swim like a little bit, but I still ran and I still did triathlon. I just had to like come to terms with not like being like, what I hoped that I could pursue.
Wow.
And then, I studied kinesiology at Westmont, and I like talk about injury prevention and rehab and stuff. Like I went through and did all these exercises, and I still like maintain certain exercises. But I remember sitting in chapel at Westmont, and I was just sitting there like with that Theracane, and people thought it was so weird because I had this like weird like hook that I was like always carrying around with me.
It kind of looks like a weird weapon or something. It's like sort of
And
a
like
strange
I
thing.
would,
Yeah.
I would sit in chapel up on the bleachers in the back, just listening and just digging out my like legs and lower back and stuff. And I remember sitting there and like I put the Theracane on my back, my shoulder, and like leaned back against the wall, and it like pressed this like very tender spot. And I was like, tender's good. Like tender's good. When we talk about muscles, like dig them out. I was like, yes. I was like, this is like, and up to this point, I hadn't been able to swim. I can only swim like a couple times a week, but very low yardage, like 2,000 yards. And when I'd get up to like close to 10, my shoulder would really hurt, like really bad, and like be sore. My neck would be all tight. And then I found this spot and I was digging it out, and I just like, it was really tender. And so I just started really working on it, and like that, like, oh, it hurts so good type of thing.
Yeah.
And then like 30 minutes, 40 minutes of doing that, like the popping went away, and I just could not believe it because I had popping for like 3 years.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I'm going to go swim. And so I just went straight down the pool and I swam. And for the first time, like ever, like my shoulder felt so much different. I had this weird like reach that I could like fully extend my shoulder without any like
Wow.
any pain or getting tightened up towards the end of the workout. And I was just like thrilled. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can swim again. And so after that, I just like started building up my swim workouts. And I really wanted to see what I was capable of doing now, because it's been so long since I would swim like 5,000 yards, like 5 days a week. So I wanted to see like where my cap would be before I started having shoulder pain, because I knew I would. It's still separated, and anatomically you're bound to have some issues eventually if you really ride on it. And so, I found that 15,000 yards a week is probably the max that I could do. And I started feeling pain around that. And so I would always stay away from that. So I'd always structure my workouts around 12 to 13,000 yards. And I'd just make sure that they're quality workouts.
Yeah.
And that worked really well for me. And I started to get like decently good runner in college towards the end of my senior year. And I just got that like fire back to be like, let's give this like triathlon thing a shot again. And so I didn't run my senior year of track because I wanted to do triathlon, and had a really bad collegiate race, which was okay because I had a whole like good running base under me.
Yeah.
And it was my first ever collegiate nationals, and I went and just tanked it. I took a red eye flight out the day before, and
Oh, wow.
super tired. Heat just zapped me. It's muggy, humid, hot in Alabama. And I remember my local guy, Chris, he was in the wave behind me, and he caught me at the finish line. It came like a dead sprint. And I remember his sister was there cheering him on. And like, come on, Chris. And it was like us two like sprint to the finish line. And he was way behind me. And I was like, gosh, this sucks. Like such a bad race. And wasn't reflective of the training, but that's okay because I went and I'd never gone before.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just stoked to be there and race. And then my coach, my cross country coach, sent this email to me from Barb Lindquist, who is the post collegiate recruitment program director for like the national team. So she was looking at like Olympic like prodigy people who ran or swam ran or swam in college, and that she was looking for people to train and convert into triathletes.
Okay. Wow.
And so she had like some times standards, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I could, like if I would have known this a month ago, I could have totally hit the run time now that I took in like 3 weeks off of running, like probably can't do that. So I really started focusing on that a lot. And I got really close to an A standard time, which was pretty awesome, but you had to make an A standard in one and the B standard in the other. And one of the A standard times, the A standard time for swimming was you had to make a finals in conference for swimming. And I was like, well, I didn't swim in college, so I can't make the A standard time for that. So I had to be okay with the B standard, which I made swimming. And then I was like, okay, well, I got to hit that A standard for running. And I got the B standard. I just couldn't hit the A standard. My cross country time was good enough, but the pace for that last race that I did, but I couldn't. I mean, I took weeks off, but I got really close. Eventually didn't do it, but I still earned my pro card, and I gave it a shot for a little bit, tried different races. And it was a bummer because the year that I got my pro card was the year that they did away with all these triathlon series that were for Olympic distance racing. And so it turned into like half Ironman. And I was like, gosh, like I don't want to do half Ironman stuff. And so I eventually took my pro card, got into half Ironman stuff, got my butt kicked at all these races. I got to have great swims and come out like first or second in the swim, and then be doing really well till like, I don't know, like the last 5 miles of the ride, and then just totally blow up in the run because I wasn't good at nutrition, racing. But yeah, I mean, that's just a little bit about that side of things. And it was exciting though, because I figured out what my shoulder injury was, and was able to rehab it. And I still I still get that pain coming back. It like, my body wants to revert to that like muscle guarding state again and get all tight and protect it, and that's just a good warning for me. It's just to say, hey, you're doing too much. You need to relax, take care of your body. It's just a good reminder to like have that like pain there. It's a good guide that like I'm getting a little crazy for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
so you back off.
You have something that I want to point out here. I mean, because you've experienced 2 injuries that were like career-ending kind of things. You had your knee, you had your shoulder from the car accident, and you were able to actually come back from those and then get back into the competitive level and get that pro card and keep running and racing. I mean, you've got a whole different perspective when it comes to injury prevention and injury recovery that is saving your body and getting you to that athletic level, returning to that athletic level time and time again. I mean, what do you think is different for you when you're doing a lot of, release work on your muscles? What are you doing that's making you different, that you're keeping your career going?
Yeah. Well, like when I kind of like figured out what my shoulder thing was, there was kind of like a elite group of triathletes in town training and at this gym. And so like Jason Smith, he was like he's like my rival and a really good friend of mine growing up. It's a really funny story how we met, but
Okay.
I'll tell it. It's great. It's good. So I was asking this girl to homecoming for college.
Okay.
And I like spelled out like, sorry, it was winter formal. That's it. And I spelled out formal in the sand in Summerland. Like,
okay.
And I lost my keys in the sand. And like, I had this like, I had these like notes like leading her to this fence where she would see it. And I'm like freaking out because like she's gonna be there like any minute. And I'm like throwing sand everywhere and like, and this guy is like tripping out, like watching me. He's standing in the water, he's ice bathing, and like he comes over and he's like, "Dude, like, did you lose something?" I was like, "Yeah, I need to find the keys. Like, I'm asking this girl to a dance right now," and he's like, "Oh God, like we gotta find the keys." And like he started like panicking with me. It was so funny. And so we found the keys, and I'm like, all right, dude, I gotta go. And so like I sprint up this hill. It was from Summerlin Beach going up to the top, and this thing's like steep.
Mm-hmm.
And like he's like running with me, but then like he couldn't run up anymore because he's all cold and stuff. And I just kept going, and like he was just like, "Whoa, like like, who's this guy? Like, just took off like up this hill. And then I saw him at a race, and like we became like really good friends
No way. That's
and
great.
race buddies. And I found out that he was training at this gym. And it's funny because like I saw him at the race. I was like, dude, no way, you're the guy that helped me find the keys. And I remember because he was wearing a zip shirt in the water, and I was like, dude, this guy's a cyclist. Like, he's got a zip shirt. Like, he's legit. And yeah, he was legit, like super legit. And so then, yeah, he started training at this gym called Prevail Conditioning. There's some other people there, and they had some like jiu-jitsu fighters. And wait, is it jiu-jitsu? What's the one with the grappling? Yeah,
I'm gonna say that's jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we're at this gym, and there's some jiu-jitsu fighters there, and they had some elite triathletes. They had this elite squad, and I basically approached Chris Eklund, who was one of the owners and who was my professor at Westmont.
Which I actually just recorded my podcast with him earlier
did
today.
You?
And he actually
awesome.
texted me a second ago on the phone and said, make sure you say hi to Matt for me. So
awesome.
hi from Chris.
Yeah. Well, funny story about Chris is like, I'd see this guy around campus all the time, and I thought he was like a recruiter for like the Navy SEALs or something, because when I was at City College, they'd have recruiters around all the time.
Yeah.
And these guys were like super gnarly looking.
Yeah.
And like Chris's muscles, and I say this all the time, and like I told him the story, and he just thinks it's like ridiculous, but like his muscles are like so like fine and defined, and like he looks so gnarly, and like his cheek muscles and everything like lean. And I was like, dude, this guy's so gnarly. I was like, he's got it. And everybody like knew him. I was like, dude, he's totally a recruiter. He's probably running like ROTC here or something. And it turns out he's like not even like that at all. He was the strength and conditioning guy, and he taught some classes. So I am taking class with him, and I approached him about being involved at Prevail, and had like a little interview and a little dialogue. And I think it was Jason that hooked me up with it. And yeah, so I started training there, and gosh, did I get my mind blown about like injury prevention. That was like, and like soft tissue and strength training, and like, because I remember I used to, like, up to that point, even when I got a degree in kinesiology, I was like so like afraid to go into a gym, because I was like, what do I do in here? Like, this is like, and there's like that one dude that's like flexing in the mirror and like throwing these weights around, like, oh, like the Hulk, and it's like, God, dude, like I don't even know what to do. And then there's those like trainers that like just like swoop on everybody. And I was trying to be a trainer. I had the education, but it just felt so like foreign to me. I was like so afraid. Yeah, so I started going to this gym, and like I just started asking questions. And Peter Bloomer, he's the guy. And so I went there for 3 years. I learned so much, and basically up from when that point started, from when I graduated till now, I never had a career or season-ending injury. I always had little micro injuries I'd need like a day or two of rest, but nothing that would ever like take me out from a race. I owe so much to them, because they're so good at what they do, and they literally kept me injury-free.
Wow. From
like amateur to pro, back out to an amateur. And like, even to this day, there's like I say, what would Pete have me do? And I was like, you know exactly what he'd have me do. He'd have me do those stupid little mini band work. And like, I'm always like doing that stuff, and it looks ridiculous, but it's so good. And it's so good for you to just do all that like lightweight body weight stuff with bands, resistance, putting yourself into functional movements and like real basic patterns. And he had me do this. He'd have me do this grip test to make sure that like I was like symmetrical, and making sure that like something wasn't terribly wrong, or if that I wasn't symmetrical, that I was consistently not symmetrical, We had this little gripper thing, and he would like squeeze. I'd have to squeeze it, and like there's days where I was just thrashed from training, just so exhausted and tired, not injured, but just tired. And like I would go to squeeze these things, and I'm like, my grip strength would be down like 20. And like he's like, nope. He's like, no, we're not doing the stuff today. And I was like, come on. I was like, we have to. Like, it's super important. He's like, no. He's like, you're tired and you rest. And then like to see like how a little bit of mobility and a little rest, a little warm up, and then go back to that grip thing. And like I was already pushing like 10 pounds more than I was when I came in. And it's like just to make sure that like my shoulder's not super tight and constricting like my nerves, and everything's working right. It was just a weird, like, just squeeze on this little grip thing, and it just had the little thing. I would try super hard some days, like when I knew I was tired, like, let me get that like number up so I can like do my lifts, you know. And that thing never lied. It never lied. I would try so
Yeah.
hard, and I just couldn't get it up some days. And those were the
Yeah.
days that I need to rest. And it was really good, important lessons that I learned going there, because they were just like super in my face about making sure I did things right. It was really good for me.
Yeah.
And so,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. You know, Matt, I want to take some of this, you know, you've got a great mindset. You've got a great attitude towards, learning and recovering from injury with your body. You know, I want to take this and transfer it to people who are maybe like your grandpa, you know, who've
Yeah.
got something going on, and it's a big thing, and they need to tackle that, and they need to be working on that to improve their health and what's going on with their body. And I want them to have a little bit of what you got going on. You know, I want them to have a little bit of that motivation and that mindset that you have. And I'm just thinking, for people who are in chronic pain issues or have mobility issues or have something going on with their body that's maybe really getting them down, and they think in their head, no, like, my knee is killing me right now. There's no way I'm getting out and running a triathlon. You know, you were in that spot too. You know, what do you think you could give to those people that would maybe help them be more aware of their bodies, or just understand how to take care of their bodies better?
Yeah. It's super hard because it's a mindset, and it's a habit that you have to get yourself into. It's not easy. It takes a lot of discipline to do, and to change like that perspective of like, oh, I'm hopeless, or oh, I don't want to do it, like I'll do it later, or it's not going to work. Like, yeah, it does. Like, most of the time it does work. Sometimes it doesn't, and like there are some other things that are going on, but for the most part, like, just those little things fix it, if not like make some improvement, you know. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's super difficult because you can't make somebody do those things, you know. They have to
Yeah.
want it, and that's like the first thing. But there's definitely some things that you can like do, like maybe if you're listening and you're injured, I think accountability is super important.
Hmm.
Like, going to somebody who's a professional in this area, paying them to work with you, and they keep you accountable and check up on you, and making sure that those things are getting done. I think that's like a start, especially if there's like a lot of money involved. There's like some incentive there to be like, all right, like, I'm spending money, like.
That's true. Incentivizing yourself
Yeah,
to make you
yeah,
do things. You're
yeah.
right.
And that's like, it keeps you accountable. Like, some people are like, oh, this gym's too expensive, but it's like, no, like, if you want to like lose the weight, or be injury free, or fix this injury, improve your quality of life, like, yeah, like, let that money be an incentive to get better and work hard. Now,
Yeah.
if you don't have that issue, even just finding like a friend to do it with, or something along those lines. But again, it's just a mindset, and you have to want it. What I found super helpful is having like little goals. When I was in college, running at City College, Scott Fickerson would make us write this goal setting thing. It was SMART. So it's called the SMART goal setting. So
Okay.
specific, measurable, attainable, uh, / accountable, realistic, and in a timely manner. SMART.
Yeah. I've heard that before. Yeah.
And I would just like, and there's certain ways to go about writing these goals that he would have us do. And it's like all this like really weird written out thing. And I was like, it's like, this is like really silly. Like, I don't need to do this, but I did it. And I like would do it religiously, because he would have us do it. And it was so good. And I pinned those goals up on my locker. And like every time I
Wow.
opened my locker, it was on the opening door of the locker and in the back of the locker. So I couldn't miss it. And I would read that paragraph like every day after practice, and would be like, one of those things was in there is like, in order for me to run this time, I had to make it to the start line. And
Hmm.
one of those things was to be injury free. And
Hmm.
so I would spend an hour every day, hour and a half every day. Okay, just a side note here, like, if you don't believe in icing and stuff, like, that's fine. But like, it worked for me. Okay. Like
All
whether
right.
if it was the placebo or not, it worked. And
Okay.
regardless of what the science says, it worked. Even if it's the placebo, and I'll take it if it's the placebo. But I would take an ice bath every single day after practice,
Wow.
and like get ultrasound and stim on my legs every single day after practice. And I'd sit in this tub of ice and just like quiver and like just relish in the pain, you know, like and like I could feel like the ice water like going up into my skull. It was weird, like through my neck, and I just was like, yes, like I'm gonna be so good, and like just like sitting there relishing in the pain, just like it was weird. It was really weird. And I had this thing where I was just like, I had the ice bath, and like every day after I got out of the ice bath, I'd take a like nice, let my legs like kind of like warm up, and I'd go stand in the shower for a little bit, and I just felt so much better. I don't know if it was just like some type of hormonal release, or if there's something that was the ice was actually doing, constricting and then dilating my blood vessels again to help like really like loosen some weird things up. But like those were one of the things that I had like in my goal setting, my SMART goals, was to do that every day. And I was surrounded by like a coach who was reading my goals, and teammates who would do it with me, and not as consistently, but who would be in there with me because they started feeling little pains and stuff. But I think being accountable to somebody, having goals, paying money to make sure that it gets done, is because some people just don't have the drive to do it. And as humans, we're like we're very communal beings, and so I think that's super healthy to find somebody to be around that's an expert in this and pay them to help you. I think that's a great exchange, especially when you have the quality of life and you're older and you want to see like your grandkids grow up and your great grandkids grow up, which is like in my grandpa's case. And I think he realizes that he wants to be around as long as he can. So yeah, he's been a little bit more intentional with those things, but having goals, having accountability, paying for that accountability sometimes. And then like even within doing the exercises, like right now I'm working myself back up to kind of where I was at when it was strength training at Prevail. But like I started out with like hip medleys and hip leg lifts and stuff. And like, I can only do like 25 right now. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. This is so bad. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do 25 for a week every day after I run. And then next week I'm going to do 30. And it's just like, it becomes like such a routine.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, you know, I'll be at like 70, 80 going for like 10 minutes straight without any rest. And that's like, yeah, my hips are solid now. And yeah, it's just having a little bit of intentionality. And if you think about it, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes of like hip medley work goes so far. And it's like, it's not that like inconvenient, you know? Yeah. Some people have a little harder where it takes, you know, it's going to take like a little bit of an hour, a little more, a little less, to do these things. And sometimes it's very painful, but that really like in the long term does a lot. And so it's important to have that perspective. And I think mindset's super important.
Yeah, absolutely. So. You are totally right, Matt. And you're also hilarious. I love what you have to say though. Yeah, it applies to so many people. And whether people are thinking of themselves in the, you know, competitive professional athlete arena, or just the, my body hurts and I need to move it more and get this pain to go away, it all applies. It's all true. Matt, you know, I've loved having you on today. I've loved talking to you and just hearing all these fun stories. You've got, you know, some crazy stories, some sad stories, but awesome in the way that you've recovered. And I appreciate it. You know, I appreciate you sharing your time and just being able to be here. And I thank you for wanting to share all this with so many other awesome people.
Yeah, well, I appreciate being on, and I love sharing stories. They're so fun, and it's a lot of fun to talk to you about this stuff and share stories. And hopefully someone out there can benefit from hearing these things. Hopefully here's some stories someday of, hey, I listened to the podcast and I did it and it worked, and yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode with Matt Organista. If you want to be involved with the podcast, there are 2 ways for you to do that.
First, if you have any questions you want answered or topics that you want us to talk about, then click on the BEET Pain website link in the show notes and message me. Second, if you want to continue listening to great content and guests, then I need your help to build the podcast and get those guests on the show. The bigger the podcast gets, the easier it is for me to bring on more guests. Subscribing, writing a review, and sharing this episode with others helps this show to grow. Thanks so much for listening.